Hello and welcome back to 32 All the Way. Today we're going to be talking to Lara and Dominick. She has a new workout called Oil and Water. You can check this out at oilandwaterbook.com. She has 5 critical reviews, 5 stars each, and they are all, you can view these at readersfavorite.com as well if you would like a little information about this book before you purchase it. How are you today, Lara?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I'm not too bad. So let's discuss this a little bit. Is this the very first work that you are releasing? Is this a series?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is my debut novel. I am intending for it to be a series, potentially a trilogy. I'm working on the sequel now. It just kind of came to me, and I couldn't not write it. Is basically
Great.
what happened.
So is this the first attempt, or just the first one being released?
This was the first attempt.
That's great. That's great. I started this whole idea of interviewing and wanting to get to know other people. I was always trying to explain, if somebody's seen the video for the first time, there's so much out there to read. And
Yes.
It might not be something that you were totally interested in. But for all these people that are online and they want to know every single thing about writing and they keep asking all the same questions, it's just, you know what, go out and get somebody's book. There's something of value from every single one. I've had certain people, especially with mine, say, hey, you know what, I might not have read this. It's in a certain genre. Again, I think there's some great stuff out there that people do not get to see, or that people
Completely
might
agree.
bypass. So this was the idea behind this. So how much do you want to tell us? Because I hate giving away too much about anybody's book.
And you know what? I really appreciate that, because this is a book where there's a few twists and turns, which the reviews do mention.
Okay.
I don't really want to go into those because I don't want to spoil that for the reader, because honestly, they were a little bit of a twist and turn for me myself as I was writing, and the characters kind of told me where they wanted to go, and I let them. So the story centers around 2 different women who each get to tell the story from their own perspective. And it is a paranormal. So we do have the idea of vampires in this world. You have Elsie, who is this she's a millennial, very average millennial, still lives at home with her parents because she's got a lot of debt. She works an hourly job just to make ends meet. She's kind of single, on again, off again boyfriend, very average, but like most millennials, she seeks a little bit of escapism, and her favorite way to do that is that she reads books, and lots of books, and she loves stories about deities and angels and vampires. Specifically, vampires are really what she just absolutely adores. And so she's got this just kind of, if you're looking at them as night and day, she's the day. She's bright sunshine and happiness. I mean, she's got some darkness in her too, but she's definitely the light side of the yin and the yang. On the other side, you have Opal, who is actually a vampire. She's fairly young for a vampire. She only woke up with no memory of her human life on a beach 10 years before the story begins. But very immediately, she is proven to be one of the most powerful vampires that most people have ever met, and rises very quickly through the ranks of their so-called government, royalty, however you want to put it. It's not really any of those. It's more just they are the powerful elite in this world, worldwide, and she is brought into this world, and she is the night. She is dark. Has no concept, because she has no memory of what it was like to be a human, of what it might be like to be a human, and to have those emotions and feelings and connections that we hold so dear as human beings.
Oh, interesting. Now, we're talking about 2 people telling the same story. Do we have an unreliable narrator here? Do we have one person kind of skewing it to their favor?
So they don't start telling the same story. They start each just telling their own story.
Oh, okay.
And what actually happens is, as you go through the book, you start realizing that certain characters weave their way in and out of each of their stories. So while it's not necessarily the same story at first, there's a connection there, and the connections definitely are something that they are going to have to confront, both together, separately, however they have to, because there's life and death is on the line, not just for themselves, but for people they care about.
Oh, that's interesting. Now, has this been envisioned? We were talking before we came on here. Has this been envisioned as a series from the beginning, or did you just not complete what you wanted to complete story-wise in this one?
I mean, I would have written it all as one book if I could, but most people aren't going to pick up like a 1,500-page book. Um,
Exactly.
and there was a very natural stopping point at the end where I said, even if I never wrote another page, I could be very happy with this being the end. Um, I would love to write more, and I think that I'm already kind of putting stuff on paper. I've got a few chapters done. I don't know if it will ever go further than that. I feel like the characters have a lot more to tell me and a lot more that they want to say, but I'm just going to kind of let them do that until they stop.
Okay. The influences behind doing this, and again, we were just saying, go get somebody else's book, go get something you might not be into. So this is
Absolutely.
actually, it's a huge area. There's a ton of literature on here, but like from my point of view, the Anne Rice novels and the Twilight.
Love Anne Rice. Oh my
Okay, I
goodness.
figured you obviously you'd be aware of Anne Rice writing about this kind of thing.
Yes. She is a hero of mine. To be totally honest, I love her novels. I think that Lestat is one of the most beautifully crafted characters in literature. If you go beyond Interview with the Vampire, in Interview with the Vampire, he falls very flat, honestly, as a character. But I think that's probably why she wrote the later series with him, because he becomes just this character of his own, and he's amazing. I wish that I could craft a character like that.
Oh, okay. Like I said, again, not something that I'm totally into, but I'm aware of that stuff.
Mhm.
The only other thing I could think of when I was going through this and looking for this was Highlander.
Okay.
You know what I mean? And I know it's not quite the same thing, but just always trying to tie something into what other people are doing just to get an idea of where they
Yes.
might have got the ideas. Because obviously, if you are writing this kind of thing is included in your work, there has to be some kind of influence or something that you would have at least known about this. So
Yes. So, I mean, speaking back to Twilight, I am of the generation where Twilight was a big thing. Read it a lot, and I really enjoyed it. But also as I did a lot of gender studies type of stuff in college and things like that. And there were a few things that were a little bit problematic with the relationships. I mean, if you're just looking at it as a piece of entertainment, it's fine. But you have young girls who might read this and think like, oh, these are not great or they might think they're great relationships when really they're not great relationships. And whenever I read it now, and this is actually Elsie in my book, she has this is 100% just directly from me and from my heart. She loves these books. She loves the movies around them. But at the same time, it's really hard for her at 28 years old. I'm not 28 anymore, but at 28 years old, she's like, none of this feels like it could be me anymore. She's like, when I was a teenager, it was great because I could always just be like, this might happen to me one day. She's like, when you're reading about how all of these immortal beings come down and they hang out in high school, she's like, I don't even know anyone who's still in high school. And so I was like, where is the book that's not completely in the realm of erotica, but it would be geared more towards adults who could then say, wow, that sounds like if something like this could really happen. That's kind of how I would like it to happen and the things I would like to see occur.
again, that was why my frame of reference was Highlander. Again, you see
Mhm.
in the movie that there's been he would have been happy being at the beginning part of the movie or the middle part. That just him being the same person all the way through, but having to see everybody else change has effects on him. And I don't think there's probably a
Yes.
story with these kind of characters that does not happen. So as far as the whole Twilight thing, like you were just mentioning, yeah, somebody my age, it's like okay, I have no frame of reference to understand what they're doing.
Right. It's a great story if you want something really fun and kind of light, but with that paranormal tilt, and then with a little bit of darkness in the middle. But it doesn't really affect the same things that maybe people in their late 20s, people in their 30s, even people in their 40s might want to experience emotionally from a novel.
Okay. So, what other areas could these characters be brought into a whole other world? Would you want them to stay here? Would they finish in this area? Some people, it seems to be a big thing now that your characters are moving from one area to another, that you're maybe going to take them out of this specific set, so to speak, and put them somewhere else.
Yeah. So the entire story is set in the general Tampa area. because I wanted to do, and Anne Rice has done this as well. I wanted to stick them in somewhere tropical, because so often you have these vampire stories where they live in dismal locations, or, you know, European castles, things like that, like back to Dracula, to Carmela, all of those classic vampire stories. And I was like, what if you had vampires who like really like to go to the beach and sunbathe? Like, what if that was a thing that could happen, and how would that happen? And so I kind of started exploring that too, because I said, you know what, it, the lore is just lore, and we can play with that. And I kind of wanted to.
And you know what? And again, that's a great point, because to just have it stuck to the idea that, you know, this guy's got to, or this character has to go to bed before the sun comes up, all that. Well, who says we can't, you know, you can't say, no, we're not going to do that. This guy, you know, he's going to be in a beach volleyball league, or he is going to do all the things that they wouldn't usually do. Like that's a great twist to put on it. What else would you like anybody, people who are going to tune into this to know about this? As far as, again, are you, I'm trying to say this in a proper way. Like we've talked, that it's not strictly a vampire story, but where exactly would we put this if Amazon said, you know, how they always tell us when we put up our books?
Yes.
Who are we pointing this at?
So it would probably be listed as either a new adult paranormal novel or new adult paranormal romance. Any combination of those three is kind of where it generally gets stuck into, because the romance is a major part of it, but it is the vehicle, not the destination. The destination is these two women coming to terms with themselves, with their strengths, with their weaknesses, and figuring out how to overcome those weaknesses so that they can do what they need to do as the novel progresses. There are a lot of hits on some fairly sensitive topics. There is a lot of metaphorical references to things like mental illness. It's a very large portion of the book, and it was really important for me to get that in there to say, you know what, there are things that people struggle to deal with. And so while it is not mental illness as we see it in our society and as we see it medically today, it's definitely reflective of what people with perhaps anxiety, depression, even bipolar disorders might go through on a daily basis. There's also a lot of issues surrounding feminist issues in modern society. There's a lot of ideas of consent and boundaries, the idea of toxic relationships and toxic people, which are not necessarily mutually exclusive to each other. You can have a toxic person who, for some reason, you really click with and have a great relationship with, and you can have a toxic relationship with a great person.
It's some interesting topics to, like I said, to tie all in to one book. Again, like I keep trying to mention every time I do these videos to put them out there to everyone, just go and read something that you might not always read, because again, this might not be my first choice, it might not be somebody else's first choice, but we've already hit on a whole bunch of topics that are being discussed now out in the open, more so than they've been, you know,
yes,
in this century or the last century, right? The mental illness, the whole idea of having a toxic person around you, of having a toxic relationship. Are you stuck in all of them? Or are you stuck in one of them? It's really, it gives people a lot to think about. It really does.
Yes.
Now, let's discuss a little bit as we finish up here. Again, everyone can go to oilandwaterbook.com, and you're giving them a sample to go through?
So you can do the look inside the book on Amazon, I believe. I will double check and make sure that that's actually functional. And if it's not, I will make sure that it is very shortly. But it's available. You can purchase it on ebook. The official print release is not until June 27th. However, it is available to order right now. You can order the hardcover or the paperback on Amazon, and it will be to you around or after the official release date.
That's great. Well, you know what? Thank you so much for your time. Everybody should check this out. Again, if you want to go look at those reviews, if you are interested in picking up Oil and Water, she has five-star critical reviews listed on readersfavorite.com. And again, we were talking before we put the camera on, if this all goes well, if you want to come back and I have time to go back and read the rest of it, I would love to do kind of a review / commentary on it, if you're comfortable doing that.
I would love to do that.
That would be great, Lara. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Bye.